Welcome to Network Society Ventures. My name is David Orban, and this is Network Society Ventures Pitching Live. We are here to see startups go ahead and present their projects. They are ready, they are very excited, and they will have 15 minutes to make an investor pitch. We will be listening, and then I will ask them questions for an additional 15 minutes. You can also ask questions because the objective of this entire series is to open investor meetings so that they are transparent and the mystique and the exclusivity disappears. You know how it is and how investors start evaluating the investment opportunities. Of course, this is just the beginning, but I hope to bring all of you exciting projects that you can also get in touch with. And I am happy to present you Alex Torrenegra, founder and CEO of Torre. Welcome, Alex.
Hello, David. Thanks a lot for the invite. Hello, everyone.
So, Alex, you have 15 minutes and we will be taking notes of what your presentation is about, what is critical, what is our curiosity. If you run longer, I will pop in and alert you of the fact. And now the floor is yours. Tell us about Torre.
Thank you, David. And by the way, my apologies for the delay. I assume full responsibility. I was trying to figure some of the details of the software in the wrong browser. But happily, we are finally able to show you what we are working on. So, Alexander Torrenegra, that's me. I'm going to share a little bit of my story as an entrepreneur and then how it has evolved into what's today Torre. I am originally from Colombia. I come from a modest family. We used to live with my mother and grandmother in the outskirts of Bogota, and we didn't have money for a car, much less for a computer. But I was obsessed with the idea of getting a computer from a very early age. And finally, when I was 14, is that I realized that I could get a loan. I could buy a computer with that loan and then put the computer to work to pay for that. It worked. I was able to get that computer. And by the time I was 18, I already had 20 people on my business. I decided to drop college because there was a new tool out there that allowed me to learn much faster than what I was actually doing in college, and that's the internet. I was investing every single penny I made into browsing the web. Back in the day, I was paying 30 cents of dollar in Colombia. That's a lot of money for browsing the web at 14 kilobits. I thus became obsessed with the idea of coming to the US and being part of the creation of the web, of the internet. I was able to finally get a visa. In the US, I went through the entire alphabet of visas that they have here, B, H, F, etc. And finally, in 2002, I found myself in New York City, already being a legal resident of this country. And I founded the first out of 3 companies related to the future of work. That first company was Voice 123. Voice123 was the first and is still the largest platform for casting voiceovers, the voices you get to listen to on video games, phone systems, movies, the voices used to train Siri, Alexa, etc. That company, we bootstrapped it to hundreds of millions of dollars in projects. And one of the reasons it became very successful is because it automated the work of the casting director. A process that used to be expensive and slow became free and became very quick. And uh, because of the success we had in Voice123, the next company I did now in 2011, and after moving here to San Francisco, also had to do with automating the work of people that select other people. For the case of Bonnie Studio, I decided to automate the work of the producer. So what Bonnie Studio does is that it has thousands of enterprise clients that uh, delegate short-term projects to Bonnie Studio, and Bonnie Studio uses AI to assemble teams of people in real time, creative remote professionals that work in projects that might last from a few minutes to a few days. This is a company that is growing faster than Waze123, very good in terms of gross margins, and because of that, we were also able to bootstrap. Now, the that takes me to 2017. In 2017, I decided that it was time for doing something even bolder, and I realized that that next step was to automate the work of the recruiter, the person that decides who gets to work on what type of jobs in a relatively traditional way. And there were several reasons why I believe that that's going to be the case. One of them is that AI is not only good at matching talent with jobs, but also at matching talent with teams. And that's something that is actually difficult for people to do because it requires a lot of variables. But there were a few other reasons why I decided that this was something interesting to pursue. One of them is that well, the future of work is remote, and the dynamics for finding jobs and for finding talent when you have not only hundreds, which happens when work is local, but now potentially thousands and hundreds of thousands of candidates for a given job opening are significantly different. And another thing is that flexible work is here to stay, and it is not only here to stay; it's here to grow. In the U.S. alone, it's expected that by the end of this year, of this decade, I'm sorry, more than 1 out of 2 people are going to be part of the flexible workforce. I have some graphics in here related to that. This is how fast people have been looking for remote work compared to, let's say, engineering and marketing jobs. This has grown This is pre-pandemic, so you can imagine how popular this has become now. Um, and this is the overlap in between people that are going to be part of the flexible workforce and the companies that are going to be using more flexible workforce in the future. And traditional recruitment really doesn't work for flexible workforce because you need a data-driven, fast, and highly automated process for that. Now, there is something else in here, and that is that there are 4 billion humans of working age that don't have a professional profile. And this is very visible here. The big blue circle is the amount of monthly active users of Facebook. The smaller blue circle is the amount of monthly active users of LinkedIn. So there is not that people don't have a way of browsing the web or they don't know how to do on the internet. It's just that there isn't a good solution for most people out there to find work in a systematic way. So with all of those combined, we decided to build a new platform for automated data-driven recruiting, which we believe is a new category that is emerging, that has several winner-takes-all dynamics and also is capable of building natural modes in there. So to do this, I ended up I started by building an amazing team of people that I had worked with in the past. I brought some key advisors as well. And we started with a first principles question. And that first principle question is, if we could reinvent recruiting from scratch today, What would it be like? And we started to build it. And very early on, we realized that we had to split this process into multiple stages. The first stage was to reinvent the resume. The second stage, expand or go into remote work. The third stage, flexible work. And the fourth stage, local work. So, by the way, I'm going to stop sharing in here my deck. Eventually, I'll use it to answer questions. And the so what we did in 2018 was that first stage of reinventing the resume, and we realized that the resume wasn't enough. Quickly, we realized that the resume wasn't enough for making those kind of predictions, those kind of comparisons. That we needed way more information, and we came up with the concept of the professional genome. The professional genome is a collection of all of those factors that are common among all different types of jobs, whether it's blue collar, white collar, skilled, semi-skilled, non-skilled, remote, on-site, etc., that are needed for machine learning to be able to make those predictions. So they include, of course, the experience of the person, and they include the reputation of the person, but they also include soft skills, hard skills, skills the person wants to develop, skills the person doesn't want to develop, verifications, recommendations, certifications, the personality traits of the person analyzed from 6 different perspectives, the professional culture of the individual, sectors of interest, aspirations, even the type of cell phone that the person uses. Now, none of those factors on its own is good for making those predictions. But when we combine them, we start making predictions that not only are comparable to the prediction that a person can do, but they become better and better the more data we have. So that was the first part. We also realized that it wasn't only a matter of getting this information from the candidates, but it was also about getting others to share information about that candidate, people that had shared experiences academically and professionally speaking with that candidate. And that had 2 significant benefits. One is that it adds trustworthiness to those professional genomes. And the second one is that it also triggers native virality in our platform, which means that we can acquire users at a 0 cost, which is the only way we are going to be able to get to the 5 billion people that we are targeting. Now, that was the first stage. The second stage, 2019, we went after remote work. We created the most complete collection of full-time remote jobs out there. And because those jobs are the most aspirational jobs for most people outside of the very expensive large cities such as New York City, San Francisco, and London, which is less than 1% of the global population, well, for the other 99%, they are very attractive. And that kickstarted the network effects. That kickstarted people completing their genomes, attracting others, and this has enabled us to grow our user acquisition speed month over month by doubling it, and the interactions between candidates and companies tripling it month over month during the previous 8 to 9 months or so. We are now expanding into flexible remote work. And in the future, as we continue increasing our global footprint, we are going to use it as a Trojan horse to get into local markets to pursue local jobs. So that's what we are doing. In terms of the round, we are currently raising. I started this company with $5 million out of my own pocket. I'm now raising around a seed round of 6 million. I'm going to do an A round here later this year or early next year in Silicon Valley with traditional investors. But for the seed round, I wanted angel investors and family offices, as many of them as possible that could commit to helping us get into their companies, into their networks of influence to maximize the chances of this new professional network that we are building being successful. Because at the end of the day, we can automate a lot of things, but this is a network, and the more people are vested on making this network successful, the better. So yeah, that's it. I know that I left a lot of things outside of the pitch, but it's only 15 minutes for the pitch, so happy to answer questions. David, thanks again for the opportunity.
No, wonderful, and thank you, and congratulations. Certainly your personal story is very compelling and interesting, as well as the successes that you have had in the past, which are a good premise, even though not a guarantee of success with the current initiative. So let me ask you about the platform. You are talking about automation. In the deck also, you mention artificial intelligence. AI sometimes is a very sexy label with nothing behind it. Is this the case in your platform too, or you have something that you can be more specific about? How do you use machine learning or deep learning or whatever variant of data science advanced algorithms that we label AI, but concretely in your platform?
That's a great question, and I think that one of the most common challenges I have faced when talking to investors is that they have been pitched by many other companies on the HR tech space, which is the sector that people usually put us in, because they get pitched constantly about companies. I'm bringing AI to HR, and it's an easy keyword to add to a deck. It's a really complex keyword to actually implement. So I'm one of the sharks, by the way, because of the success of the companies I created. I ended up becoming an angel investor, and I ended up being invited to be one of the sharks in the Latin American version of Shark Tank. So I also do investments on TV and such. Fortunately, it doesn't take a significant amount of time. But because of that, I got to meet Mark Cuban, which is the most popular shark in the American version of Shark Tank. And I asked him, what insights do you have? I mean, as an investor, what's that you know that other investors don't know? And he said that AI is way more difficult to actually implement than what people actually like to think. And I completely agree. So I've seen over and over HR tech companies saying that they do AI where the founders have no background whatsoever on artificial intelligence or data science. They pretend that by having AI on the deck and hiring a data scientist and putting the data scientist on the team, they solve the problem. But it's not that easy, especially because it's not so much about the algorithms per se. That's part of the problem. The biggest problem is capturing data for HR tech, right? There are, in most fields that use AI, you have a lot of data, and then you add algorithms that end up using that data to crunch it and come up with numbers or predictions. The problem with HR overall is that that data doesn't exist. You have to capture it. And then you have to determine first what data you have to capture, how you capture that data, what kind of behavioral economics you need for that, what kind of behavioral design you need for that, what are the incentives for people to give you that data, how can you clean that data, and then that's when you crunch the numbers, not before that. So yeah, it's the only reason I feel comfortable pursuing the work that we are doing is because I already did this twice in the past with two companies that are doing it every single minute. You can go to Bunny Studio today, post a project requiring, let's say, an audio ad, and it's going to be done automatically. Now with people are actually doing it, but the process of selecting the people and delivering, managing all of the quality control and cost pricing and all of that is actually being done by machine learning and artificial intelligence. And that's what you get. By the way, those algorithms are so confident of themselves that I mean, we design them with such a high level of confidence that in the case of Bunny Studio, if you don't like the outcome of the work, you get your money back. And the people that work on the project, they still get paid. And not only that, you get a discount for your next project. So it's AI that I already created. I'm extrapolating that AI now for general recruiting. Is it more difficult? Yes, it's potentially an order of magnitude more difficult. But we have the basis and the foundation for doing this successfully more than anyone else out there, I believe.
Okay, so the answer is not yet, but you believe you have the experience to substantiate what the AI is going to be after you have the data.
Yes, and it's a transition, by the way. So with my experience in the case of the previous two companies, what happens, so here's an analogy. You were an early adopter of Google the same way that I was, right? So in the early days of Google, we used to go all the way to page 5, 10 of the search results. right? Because we got used to that with other search engines such as Alta Vista and such. Like we couldn't trust the first page. We had to really dig down into that. Today, going to the second page of the search results of Google is like going into the deep web. Like you never go there because you trusted the algorithm. So that's something that I've seen. It's not that we cannot do predictions right now. It's that people need to learn to trust the algorithm. So today we are still working heavily on assisting people with the selection of personnel, but we are confident that it's only a matter of time before we get to the point where there are even interview-less recruiting processes, where you don't even interview the person before you make an offer and the person gets to start working with you.
How do you work with or against the ATS systems, the applicant tracking systems that have become in the past few years fairly popular in the large organizations that you want to target?
So ATSs, it's fascinating how ATSs have evolved because there are some economies where ATSs are popular, in particular the US. There are other markets where ATSs are pretty much non-existent. If you go to most emerging markets, ATSs don't exist. Or if the market has one, that's like the only one they have. So on
Sorry,
one side,
does that mean that you are targeting international markets with Torre right away?
yes, our go-to-market was remote work. We already have users in more than 90 countries. Most of the jobs that we have in the platform today come from companies in the Northern Hemisphere, and most of the talent comes from the Southern Hemisphere, which is natural because that's where there is the most arbitrage at the moment in general. Now, going back to the ATS point, we develop a next generation ATS within the platform. It was required for this to work, and we are offering that for free to companies. So ATSs overall are hating us because we are telling those companies that used to pay them, hey, you can use something that is better than the ATS that you had, and you can use it for free. And why is that we are giving away for free? Because we believe that for us to be able to build that large network, the largest network of talent and jobs, it needs to be frictionless. The same way that you don't have to pay YouTube to post a video, the same way that you don't have to pay Instagram to post a picture. And YouTube gives you a lot of tools for you to manage your videos. Monetization is going to come via sponsor listings, advertising. On the company side, it's the same way that Google monetizes today, Twitter monetizes, etc., etc. So now, ATSs, by the way, are only focused on full-time employees. There is no ATS today for flexible workforce. Our ATS is also useful, very useful for flexible workforce when you are hiring people at scale and you need to be able to manage volume quite quickly.
You're trying to kill a phone call, I think, right?
To kill a phone call?
No. Okay. All right. Please go ahead. I was hearing something ringing in the background. Now, LinkedIn killed Monster, and you are gonna kill LinkedIn. Who is going to kill you?
I don't think we are going to kill LinkedIn. I think that it might be a byproduct of what we are doing, but I believe that as we have seen in other cases, there is a chance for social networks to coexist. We today have the social network of Facebook, of Instagram, of Snapchat, of TikTok, WhatsApp. Many people argue it's a social network as well. So while on the entertainment and communication side, we have gotten used to having multiple networks, on the professional network side, we only have one, right? So why is that? Like there could be many. I mean, there are some tiny ones like Upwork and a few others, but like major size ones, there is only one. So I do believe that we are going to become a better alternative to LinkedIn. But LinkedIn prints money, and it's not like they're stupid not to move. So I think we are going to be.
Since you are targeting part-time jobs or the gig economy as well, and remote workers. Isn't it the case that transactions are an important challenge for those workers, and Torre should include the ability to transact with the clients as well?
Yeah, it's one of the ways in which we are planning to monetize, but make it optional. I think that one of the mistakes that Upwork has done, that Fiverr has done, and that I did with Waste123, by the way, back in the day, is that we force users to be transactional. And that is the only way you can get value out of this is if you transact through it. But the reality is that there are many, many, many instances where where you need to find a person, but you don't need necessarily to transact through that platform.
Well,
And we want to
Upwork
evaluate.
is now in a bind because their obsession with transactions now forced them to be protectionist because they couldn't withstand the competition of Chinese or Indian or Pakistani freelancers. And in order to shield the US members of their platform, they are now prohibiting non-US members bidding on the juiciest jobs. So US jobs can only be taken by US based members of Upwork. And I only learned about this recently, but it is an amazing consequence of not their desire to protect the workers, of their obsession about the transactional nature of their business model. Now, let's talk about the raise. You are in Silicon Valley, and it is very nice and funny in a way that you call the $6 million a seed round, because it is easily what in other markets would be an A round, and it is 10 times what in other markets could be called a seed round. But it's absolutely fine, of course. Is this on a convertible basis, I would assume, or what are you using in order to collect investor money?
Yeah, the investment vehicle is a combination of a safe and a warrant. So it's a safe with a 15% discount and with no cap. Instead of the cap, what we are giving the investors is a warrant that comes with a fixed price, with a fixed amount of shares. And the goal behind this is that I didn't want the seed round to be priced, because if we price the seed round, if we have a cap in there, we are pretty much sending a signal in terms of what the A round should be. And
Yeah.
I want to make sure that I have enough leverage and flexibility for the valuation of that A round. And a way of doing that is by offering warrants. So it's kind of a hedge, meaning if the valuation of the A round it's low, then the safe is what is going to end up converting for the most shares. On the other hand, if the valuation of the A round is really high, the warrants is what is going to end up being the most valuable. So it's a win-win situation for everyone. And well, I keep that flexibility.
And of course, having 100% month growth is nice, as long as you explain to your investors that it cannot last forever, because we only have 8 billion people on the planet.
Mm-hmm.
So it will start tapering off pretty soon. Now, you said that you want family offices and angels to participate. What is the minimum ticket to get in the round?
We are accepting tickets between 50 and 300K.
Okay, so not less than 50 and not more than 300.
Correct.
Okay. Yeah. And of course, in the US, there is also the limit of 99 in investors. So you couldn't if you are not aware of that, make sure, because after 99 investors, your reporting costs are basically equal to being public. So there are very, very important differences between having less or more than 100 investors.
Although they fortunately they raised that limit recently, and there is a law in Congress to raise it even more to 5,000, I believe. And this is the consequence of crowdfunding and crowd equity becoming popularized.
Yes, very good. So how is your company coviding? And coviding is the frantic necessity of all of us of pivoting under the pandemic. So it's a neologism. You're welcome to adopt from my friend Emil Abirashid, who coined it. So how are you COVIDing?
Well, we are growing really, really, really fast as a consequence of COVID. We were already growing fast. COVID, of course, is just making us grow faster.
So contrary to others that could have been negatively impacted, you have been positively impacted by the circumstances.
Yes, in multiple ways. I'm going to share again my deck in here. So this shows our growth numbers. Now, this is in here pre-COVID, so we were experiencing an explosive growth, and then post-COVID, it's been just growing much faster. So we actually didn't have to change that much. If anything, what we did is that we decided to invest even more heavily on the remote marketplace, and this is what I mean. We had already a prediction in terms of how long it would take humankind overall to adopt remote work. So we knew that to get to where we needed to get, we will have to go after flexible local work by the end of this year. But now that remote work is here to stay, yesterday, Forbes, I believe, announced the results of a poll where they asked people in the US after the pandemic, would you want to continue working from home? Yes, no. 54% of people now want to work remotely from home. So we decided to place on hold going after flexible local jobs and continue focusing on remote. That's the only adaptation that we had really made. And of course, well, we have the huge responsibility of teaching people how to work remotely. Actually, I'm publishing a book on remote work. is going to be published next month, and on the whys and hows of building remote teams. We have been investing heavily on teaching people how to build remote teams out there to give them the peace of mind in terms of how to manage a workforce. We believe early on that, and you, David, you were kind enough to join us in one of those webinars. We believe that if we teach people how to work remotely, at least last month, that was going to save a lot of jobs because people weren't going to be firing people because they didn't feel comfortable leading them remotely. So now, from that emergency mode, now it's becoming more of a social responsibility for us to continue coaching people and teaching people how to work remotely.
How long is the 6 million going to last? What is your burn rate going to look like after the close?
It's going to right now. It's $150,000 a month. It's going to increase to around 250, and it should give us a little bit more than a year.
And so typically an A round is after you start generating revenues. So you do expect starting to generate revenues in a year, or Silicon Valley operates still under different rules?
No, I don't think that is Silicon Valley per se. It's a network play. I mean, if you look at Google, Facebook, LinkedIn, they were not focused on making money before the seed round. So it's the exception to the rule, indeed, and this is one of those exceptions. We need to focus on growing our network. You're very familiar with how important network effects are, because the faster we do it, the more value we're going to be able to create, and the more value we create, the more value eventually we're going to be able to capture. So it's a network play, and I don't believe we are going to be monetizing systematically before the B round, only potentially after a B round.
Have you soft circled any amount already out of the 6 million? And when would you ideally expect to be able to close?
Yeah, we already received 4.2, so there is 1.8 left in the round. And based on the pace that we are raising money, potentially by the end of this month, we should be closing it.
Wonderful. Alex, thank you very much, and congratulations for your progress, and good luck with the rest of the process. And thank you for being here in Network Society Ventures Pitching Live.
Thanks a lot, David, once again for the opportunity, and please stay safe and healthy in Italy.
Absolutely, you too. So thank you very much, everybody, for being here at this episode of Network Society Ventures Pitching Live. I will see you in the next episode soon as we bring you exciting startups that are delivering projects and innovation and value to investors the world over.